Today's episode of the Coping Hour is going to be NBA heavy. We got the Pistons, we got the Knicks, we got some Rudy Gobert, we got the Pacers, we got the Kings, and then to wrap everything up, we do some pop culture, we do some movie theater talk at the end. Stick around. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Date today is the 17th of November, year of our Lord 2023. Welcome to yet another edition of the Coping Hour, hosted by yours truly, Nicholas Hinkle. We got a pretty big show today, so why don't we start with some goofs? Why don't we start by just kind of doing some nasal exhales? You know what I mean? Let's laugh a little bit. Like 2 years ago, we used to do a segment over at Buckets on our live shows called Scam of the Week, and how that worked was, you know, when the show would come around, we would look at the landscape of basketball, and an easy example off the rip is like Joel Embiid is foul merchanting extra hard this week and tricking fans and the refs into thinking that he's being fouled like 75% more than he actually is. Grifter. Joel Embiid, scam of the week, right? And then we'd kind of do a whole spiel about it. But I don't want to get a cease and desist, even though I'm the one that invented the fucking segment. So I'm going to tweak it just enough that they can't send me anything in the mail. We're going to go Grift of the Week. Because it very rapidly became clear to me that this might be the most loaded ballot that we've had in this category in a long time. Like over the last few days, it's been an avalanche of grifts. So let's just jump right into it. Number one, the first nominee. Big Baby Glenn Davis and Will Bynum getting caught trying to defraud the NBA's health insurance policy. And my first response was, this doesn't happen more often. There's not more nefarious activity involving this more often. Or maybe there is, and guys are just better at getting away with it. I'm honestly surprised that in the four major sports, stuff like this doesn't happen that often. Like, not that many shitheads slip through the cracks. Really? Okay, it's a testament, I guess, to the leagues. Although these are the same guys that in all of these sports, instead of defrauding like a health insurance policy, they just like beat their wives and girlfriends instead. Anyways, second nomination this week. That one kind of went off the rails. Where's this going? Kelly Oubre getting hit by a car. It's not that he didn't get hit by the car, because I'm pretty sure that he did. Like, not pretty sure. The guy got hit by a car. And now that he's okay, and we know that he's going to be fine, I think we can kind of make some jokes about it. Jokes like, do we need to get Chris Broussard in the room and ask this man the James Harden question? Because there are two ways to think about this. One, police are like, Kelly, we checked the surveillance cameras near the scene of the crime that you said that this happened, and we literally didn't see anything. We didn't even see you. Like, what happened? People are like, oh, like, what's the real story? What was he doing? What was Kelly up to? Was he doing something he wasn't supposed to do? And I'm like, the motherfucker got hit by a car. Like, his brain is applesauce. He probably didn't know where he was for a while. And I don't know what the timeline was in terms of him filing a police report. Was it immediately after? Was it the next day? Like, I don't know. Who knows, right? Maybe it's out there. I don't know. But give the guy some slack. He got hit by a car. And then you have these journalistic titans of industry, TMZ, acquiring the ring footage to his home, where you get to see him walk up to his door with his bike, like kind of like limping a little bit. He's disheveled, but he's like, ugh, like he's like grunting and moaning. He walks in, door closes, and you hear the ensuing conversation with him and whoever the woman was in the room, where he's telling her that he got hit by a car. And she's like, you got hit by a car? He probably got hit by a car, and he's going to be okay. But hey, Kelly, where did it happen? We got to know. Until then, you might be grifting. I don't know. You trying to get some PTO? What's going on here, Kelly? I don't like that joke. Third and final nominee this week. Adam Silver on the hot seat, fining Rudy Gobert $25,000 for, I guess, his involvement in being choked out by Draymond Green. I've seen a lot of people like upset on Rudy Gobert's behalf. And I'm confused because these are the same people who have been saying fuck Rudy Gobert for the last 8 years. I'm still there. Fuck this guy. Fine him $50,000 for getting choked out by Draymond Green. I don't give a shit about that now. I don't give a shit if like Draymond is like the antithesis of progression and like the quintessential embodiment of shenanigans. I am not anti-Draymond, but I am anti-shenanigans, and that's what comes with Draymond all the time. You know what makes this worse for Draymond is the fact that Rudy Gobert kind of put him in a body bag. The fact that Rudy Gobert was like, his coach is going to stick up for him. Right? Steve Kerr is going to stick up for Draymond because it's Draymond. That's his guy, right? It's his team. It's his player. Like, they're boys. They've been together through this entire journey. Of course he is. But deep down, Steve Kerr knows what it is. Deep down, Steve Kerr knows he's a clown. You don't think that's at least a little bit true? Of course, Steve Kerr, like, loves Draymond. Of course he does. Like, unconditionally. He's probably like a son to him. But you don't think there's that little part of Steve Kerr that's like, this fucking guy. Like, again, with this, again. Rudy Gobert getting fined $25,000 for that? Objectively hilarious. Can we talk for a quick second? Those are your nominees for the week for Grift of the Week. Let me know in the comments. Let's talk for a second about the Pat Bev take on saying that Cat is a punk for not getting involved and instead just kind of like acting like he wanted to do something and like mean mugging and like quote unquote not being there for his boy. I'm not in the NBA fraternity. I don't know how these things go. I've never been in a physical fight before. I don't have friends that get into fights. Like, that's just not my world. I don't know what the etiquette is there. But you know what a Timberwolves fan is going to tell you? If Cat gets ejected in that game, we probably lose. Probably lose. So the take here is what? Karl Anthony Towns made the right basketball move by not getting involved in that little scrum. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're Karl Anthony Towns. Either you're too damn emotional, which is what people have been saying about him his whole career, or he's not emotional enough in the moments where it's most crucial. And if you want to do a whole thing where it's like, yeah, but, you know, these guys, they act like they're tough, and then, you know, but they're actually, like, not about that shit, and they act like they always want to fight. Such is life, man. Like, yeah, when you are in front of 20,000 people, like, you're going to big your chest a little bit. Like, you're going to talk your shit a little bit extra. And then when you get in the tunnels, you're going to quiet down a little bit because now it's not a spectacle and now it's real life. But when those dudes are on the court, in baseball especially, these guys are the biggest offenders of this, acting like they want to fight, the hold me back, like standing out, it's like taking one step out of the dugout and looking at the other dugout while you have guys pulling you back. You're not going to fucking do anything. Sit down. Shut up. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of that. And honestly, it still makes for a good product. Let's talk more hoops. Sacramento Kings back on the menu. It's about time, Nick. Holy smokes, right? This email comes to us from Ethan. I'm going to do some quick housekeeping here up at the top because Ethan did something that I really appreciate. Sort of like a TLDR'd version of the question at the top of the email, followed by the body of context afterwards. Now, Ethan, I do have to admit to you, when you send in the Connor Stallions Manifesto adjacent chronicling your life as a Sacramento Kings fan. Unfortunately, we will not have enough time to read all of this today, but I want you personally to know I did read every single word of this off the air, okay? So we're just going to do the question here on the show, but I appreciate the email all the same. So here it is. Will the Sacramento Kings regret trading Tyrese Haliburton if the core of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis does not bring them sustained playoff success? I think the phrasing there at the end is crucial. I still think the short answer, if you're a Kings fan, is no. Because if I'm looking at this through the lens of a Kings fan, how long was it that we were like, if we can just check this one major box, everything will be fine. If we can just get this one monkey off of our back and make the playoffs for the first time in, 18 years, like, we're good. What was it, 2006, I think, was the last time that the Kings made the playoffs? Longest playoff drought in the NBA. It was up there in the four major American sports. I don't know where it was. If it was number one, it was number one. But it had been a while for them, right? So you're a Kings fan and you're thinking, I don't care what roster we have to field. Just get us the 8th seed. Just get us in there. When you add on top of that they went out in almost devastating fashion against a team that they do not like in the Golden State Warriors in 7 games. You know, people could argue, I think even maybe I argued at the time that it's like, if there's a team to lose to in the playoffs, it's just not, it cannot be the worst feeling to lose to the Steph Curry Golden State Warriors. You're not the first and you won't be the last, man. It's just like, it's the food chain, you know? It's nature. It's Mother Nature at its finest. It's just, it happens. It is what it is. But you can't tell that to a Kings fan because they hate those Bay Area teams. And they should, right? There's a little rivalry there. Whether it's one-sided or not is not it's not the discussion here. That in and of itself, that you guys got there, is huge. And I think that says a lot about how we can value this trade pretty much already, right? Let's take a quick second here to look at what was in the trade. So Indiana got Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. The Sacramento Kings received Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, and a 2023 second-round pick. If I was a Pacers fan at the time, I'm genuinely asking this, wasn't I thinking that if any name is about to be, abruptly swept out the door or put on that proverbial chopping block, it's Miles Turner, right? That Boston marriage finally happens. I think there were Portland rumors at the time, maybe even like Miami. Honestly, if we're being for real, if you are a fan of any of the 29 other teams in the NBA, you at some point in your life have seen your favorite team's name attached to a Miles Turner rumor. Like, we all have that anecdotal, like, yeah, I remember when my team almost traded for Miles Turner. Mike Conley is sneaky on that list too. He did not get shopped around to like all 30 teams, but like a good 15 of them, I'd say. The Pistons had that at some point. It was like Luke Kennard and like Andre Drummond, or some combination of something that involved Luke Kennard and a first-round pick for Mike Conley right after he signed that contract. It was like 152. I don't remember what the Mike Conley contract was, but at the time he was the highest paid player in NBA history, and the highest like award or accolade that he had accrued was like a second-team all-defense. Had never made an all-star game at the time, and then didn't for like a few years, and then eventually got in as like a reserve. I'm getting sidetracked here. It's kind of bizarre because if you look back on it, man, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, I was floored by this, and I don't remember being as floored as I was with most trade. Like I could sit here one day and throw together a power ranking of like all the trades that blew my mind. Sneaky Kevin Durant to the Suns would be on there. Happened in the middle of the night. There's a strong history in the last decade of those league altering trades that kind of happen overnight. This one was in like the middle of the day. I think it was even in the morning maybe. But at the time, you had a kid in Tyrese Haliburton who was like 20 years old, top 10 in assists in the NBA. You can plug and play him top to bottom, 1 through 15, with anyone on that roster. And you could do the same in Indiana. You could do that with any team in the league. De'Aaron Fox is out for the night. That's fine. Tyrese Haliburton is moonwalking to 23-12. We'll be okay. Could you have said the same thing about Sabonis in Indiana? Mostly, but no. Because we saw what happened when he tried to share the floor with Miles Turner. It just didn't really work. And Sabonis is one of those guys that you bring him into Sacramento, he's a brick wall on defense. He truly is. He's the second best passing big in the NBA, only behind Jokic. I think the most undervalued part of his game is his shot selection and his ability to fall back when he needs to, right? To not force his hand when he needs to. Like, I wish he shot more threes because he can. Like, that's it. And how many guys are in the NBA right now that like play that 4-5, right? And they can stretch and they shoot because they can, not because they should, because they can. Because they're like, I was in the LA Fitness. I had the ball on a string. It was just me and my trainer and like 6 cones. You guys saw the footage, and then they put it up. And what happens? They step into a 27-foot air ball. Not Sabonis. That's not him. I'm also thinking about this like, Kings fans, how far removed are you from the Harry Giles, Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield Kings? Or even teams before that were even demonstrably worse? How far removed are you? Not very. Just a couple years, right? Just a couple years removed from that. And you give these motherfuckers a Beam and Tyrese Haliburton, and now they're like, if we don't make the Western Conference Finals in 3 years, we got to sell the team. Really? And that's not, you're not saying that. It's more of a general sentiment. That the millisecond that your favorite team starts to get good, the entitlement that you kind of begin to feel, you can't help it. It just happens, right? Because you're like, okay, well, we're finally one of those teams now, and historically, here's what good teams do in these situations. The Lions at the trade deadline, people were really upset that Donovan Peoples-Jones was like all that Brad Holmes went after, right? All that he went after, especially when you see like Montez Sweat or Chase Young getting sent around. Could they have called about Danielle Hunter? Because historically, it's like, well, you see a lot of NFL teams, the teams who are really good, they try to make that all-in move at the deadline to show that we believe this is our window and we think the time is now. Sacramento Kings made the Sabonis trade because they believed that if you pair De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis together, that their window could be approached faster than if they stuck around with Haliburton. I would also argue, look at it through the lens of a Pacers fan. Maybe not through the lens of a Pacers fan, but the principle of I'm a Kings fan, and they're making the playoffs this year, right? I'm a Pacers fan. We're maybe making the playoffs. Like probably, like we should. We should make the playoffs. What's the ceiling? At like absolute best case, 6? Do you think they can get to 5? We'll have to see. But for all intents and purposes, let's say they're at 6. God forbid you're at 7. Who are you playing? Milwaukee? Boston? Philadelphia? Is Miami going to do the thing where they're a 10th seed and then decide that they actually want to go to the NBA Finals, or are they going to actually fucking try in the regular season? We'll have to see. Right now, honestly, it could be either. It could be either, but I think they're going to try. I think it's going to be easier for the Kings to go on that mid-season tear. They do like an East Coast trip or something, and they just go thermonuclear, and it gives them such an advantage in the standings, maybe late in the season or something. I haven't looked at their schedule. And they kind of coast off of that. I think it's going to be so much easier for Sacramento to get a favorable playoff matchup. If it's a race to see who wins a playoff series first, we saw what happened last year. The Kings were that close. They were one game away. They were that close, right? I think, you don't want to be like the Pistons of like 15 years ago, making 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals, and like that's it, because that also feels terrible, right? It's like either lose in the first round and then the next year like win a series, and then the next year it's like, do whatever. But getting to this, it's like when Mark Sanchez and the Jets and Rex Ryan, those like Bart Scott on that defense, Jonathan Vilma, went to like 3 straight AFC Championship games. He gets so close every single time. You would be screaming and crying and throwing up and sliding down the wall 3 years ago if I told you that you would be playing a Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA playoffs. You know what I mean? Things are going so well right now that I honestly wouldn't even be thinking about it anymore. The same way that Pistons fans think about, what if we drafted Tyrese Haliburton? If ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk right now. You know what I mean? So here's the tricky thing. We got a lot of emails about the Timberwolves and the Pacers and like the Heat. I'm not going to talk about the Heat. And we kind of actually intrinsically did a little bit of Timberwolves, and we did a little bit of Pacers. So I'm just going to go to the well, and I'm just going to do some Piston stuff. Also because Marty here asks a good like housekeeping question. And this is kind of like one of those FAQs that I've always gotten. So let's answer this first. Hey, Nick, or is it Nick? I never know if Nicholas is Nick or Nick, and what he's asking is it NIC or is it NICK? I will never check anybody who says NIC because my name is NICOLAS, so it makes sense that it would be NIC, but I do NICK. The only way I get upset is if it's NICHOLAS. That is not how you spell Nicholas, for me at least. So yes, NICK. Anyways, now to my question. How worried are you, if at all, that Cade is merely going to be a good NBA player and not a potential perennial all-star / top 25 guy that many thought he could be? I will add the caveat that I know he's basically in his second year. He's knocking off rust. He has no spacing, and a lot of the early season struggles will dissipate over time. It's just frustrating for other young players to really flash and show promise while we watch Cade struggle. Obviously, it took Haliburton a couple years. It took Anthony Edwards a couple of years. But when we don't have a guy that we can count on to be great a majority of nights, it's so hard to keep being patient rotation after being bad for so long. I really want to believe that Cade is going to be that guy for us, but I find myself losing faith. Give me hope, please. Thanks for the email, Marty. You know, you kind of answered it. You kind of gave the spiel that everybody else is giving right now, right? He's basically in his second year. He's knocking off rust. He has no spacing, blah, blah, blah. All we have to do is just let the season play out, and these issues will resolve themselves over time. How true is that? I don't know yet, because there's a really compelling argument that this team is not actually built properly at all. When you have no one that can get to the line, you know, you can do the injury thing if you want. How much does it help when Bogdanović comes back? How many eyes does he really draw? How many defenders does he really draw? Does him and Monte Morris alone, does Isaiah Livers alone, those three guys coming back and playing consistent minutes, does it free up Jaden Ivey? Does it free up Cade Cunningham? The issue with Cade right now isn't that he's not getting to his spots, it's that he's not making his shots. Word to Dr. Seuss, unintentional rhyme. Something that I like to do a lot, this is very well documented, I love calling my shot. I love telegraphing. If we want to do a list of things, like right now, my biggest one that I've been saying for the last few months is Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, is basically already the Freudian slip, the Los Angeles Chargers head coach. He's basically already their head coach. Brandon Staley's getting fired. We've known that all year that this wasn't going to work. He's going to get fired, and Ben Johnson's going to take that job. You talk about this game last Sunday, I was pissed watching that game because I'm like, damn, like Ben Johnson is just getting an early look at his new digs. He's probably like licking his chops looking at Justin Herbert. And I'm not trying to will this into the universe, Lions fans. Like, I'm sorry, but we all know what it is, right? That's where he's going. That's one I really like to do. I talk about Aster as getting 3 triple-doubles this year. That one looks like it actually might have some legs too. You talk about a guy who's like top 5 in all the major statistical categories, points, rebounds, assists among rookies. Yeah, he'll get like 1 in there. I think it'll be hard to get 3, honestly, from what we're seeing so far, because there's nobody who can score. How is he going to get assists? He's going to get 10 rebounds pretty easily. I think he can get 10 points pretty easily. Once you get that Aster corner 3 locked down, yeah, nasty. He's going to be nasty, like he already is. But where I'm going with this, and I apologize to the people who have heard me do this spiel, this history lesson, like almost ad nauseum. So I'll try to speed through it as quickly as I can. But for those of you who aren't totally in tune with the Pistons, you go back a few years ago, Tom Gores buys the Pistons, and he has a really hard time putting together a competitive team that can even squeak into the playoffs, right? We did it in 2016. I think we were an even 500 that year. And like 2 more years go by. It's January of 2018. Stan Van Gundy is on his last leg, both as the head coach and as like the president of basketball operations. He's making his own roster. Pistons can't get it together. And what was seen initially as an effort by SVG to keep his job, he makes the Blake Griffin trade. And I do think for context, it is important to add that this was like 6 months at most after the Clippers had that fake retirement ceremony for Blake Griffin where they put his jersey in the rafters in Staples Center and then I guess took it down after that when he left the arena. And they sign him to this major contract and then they ship him off to Detroit. What we later realize is that this was Tom Gores. Stan Van Gundy loses his job by the end of the year. This was Tom Gores getting impatient. This was our owner kind of playing God with a basketball team and saying, I don't like the way that you're doing things. I think that, for business purposes, I think we should go get a guy. By the way, 2018-2019 version of Blake Griffin, All-Star Blake Griffin, third-team All-NBA Blake Griffin, transcendent 3-ball Blake Griffin, would be a fucking problem on this Pistons team. Also, I'm going to get back on track. I get Blake's body probably doesn't work very well anymore. But he's not on an NBA team right now. He's not on a roster. And for his career to go out this way is sad and it's just devastating to me. It's gross. We don't have to go back that far. About 6 months ago, the Pistons coaching search is taking way too long. It's taking way too long. We find out it's because Troy Weaver wants Kevin Ollie. and Tom Gores wants Monty Williams. The owner sets the precedent. We've talked about it on this show. He's going to get what he wants, especially when you have one who's as aggressive as Tom Gores is. Pistons are having trouble winning games right now. They're young guys, like you said, there's some skepticism there for some of them on most nights. Is there a world where the Pistons do something incredibly drastic in the offseason? Yes. Yeah, if things don't pan out. And I think we're kind of starting to see what that drastic thing might be. I'm not saying Zach LaVine is coming to the Pistons, but in the name of telegraphing something, it makes sense, technically. Because if you want a guy on your basketball team who is a perennial all-star, I don't know about perennial for Zach LaVine, but for all intents and purposes, an all-star, a guy who is lightning quick with the basketball and can get you, just the other night had a sequence where he had like 6 points in 9 seconds. 6 points in 9 seconds. Gun to your head. You have to pick somebody on the Pistons to give you 6 points in 9 seconds. Who are you picking? Bogdanovich? Probably. Maybe Marcus Sasser. Maybe people would this year would pick Marcus Sasser. I wouldn't be mad at that. But you're probably going to take Bogdanovich. And how confident? I'm probably dead, right? If the gun's at my head, I'm probably dead. 6 points in 9 seconds. It doesn't seem that far outside of reality to think that Tom is going to take the reins again and say, you have to get somebody. Here's a list of guys that you can go get. Go fucking get them. It's too early for the Devin Booker thing. Matt Ishbia has not yet proven that he's Joseph Tsai 2.0, so we still don't know how that's going to turn out. That's why I've been saying that's a year and a half, 2 years away, the Devin Booker thing. Like, we're not there yet. But Zach LaVine is available right now. Does he want to be here? I don't care. I don't care. I mean, I care because I want him to stay here if we're going to trade for him and give up capital and give up assets for him. And I understand that this doesn't answer your question, and this isn't even about Cade. But I'm saying if the same pressure that we're feeling now to like, dude, we got to do something, is being felt in the front office, which I imagine it is, and is being felt by ownership, which I imagine that it is. People have wondered, is Cade a number 2 or a number 3 that is being forced into playing as a number 1? Is that something that Tom Gores wants to fuck around and find out about? I don't think Troy does. Honestly, I don't either. I would prefer that we just ride it out with Cade because I think he's that guy. The formula in the NBA these last few years has been pretty clear. These like small forward-sized, not even necessarily point guards, but these bigger guys who can handle the ball and initiate offenses are kind of like what runs the league. The guys who are built like Cade, those are the ones who are like the number 1 options, the ball handlers, like the dudes. We have that going for us. If Cade got a whistle ever, like fucking ever, I don't think we'd be having this conversation seriously. Like, we might be talking about his shooting splits a little bit because it did kind of feel like we got sold a bag of shit like leading up to the draft, because I'm just kind of like, he doesn't shoot that well. He's not this world eater defensively. Like, this is just goes to show that pre-draft, you really got to take things with a grain of salt. And honestly, I would implore more people to actually watch the tape. Could you guys hear that horn? That totally derailed the train of thought that I was just on. Holy smokes, that was insane. Let's move on to another email. We're about to talk about the New York Knicks. I can't believe we're about to do this on this show. But we got an email from Omari, and it's kind of just, the phrasing is just hilarious. I just really want to read this. Omari says, we need to move Randle. I hate Julius Randle. Hate is a strong word, but I mean it. The guy has skill, but the effort is not there. I love the defense from RJ, but it wouldn't have cost much to move up the draft. Brunson is the best thing to happen since Melo, and Mitch is okay-ish. What do you think should be done about this core? I have lost faith once again. On the Mitchell Robinson thing, didn't he punk Victor Wembanyama the other night, like a week ago or something? You got that going for you. I don't know if there's... With the Knicks, I think Mitchell Robinson is perfect because I don't know if there was like a tier list of players whose legacy is contingent either on individual shots or individual games. I think this is where the 2 players I'm about to talk about are different. Individual games, it's Mitchell Robinson. especially when he's in New York and he's under that spotlight and he's under that scrutiny from the fans, right? Like and that's kind of going to be any player, but Mitchell Robinson especially, his entire career in New York has basically just been a melting pot of that. The other guy I'm talking about is I don't think there's a player in the NBA whose legacy is more contingent on them making or missing an individual shot than Chris Middleton. On any given night, watch him play a game and watch how people react when he misses 4 shots in a row versus when he makes shots in a row. I swear to God, it's insane. Jalen Brunson, best thing to happen since Melo. That's a fascinating take. Is this like... I don't even really want to unpack that. I'll take your word for it. I like that take. It's interesting. I haven't seen it. I like it. On the Julius Randle thing, this is really what I want to talk about. Hate is a strong word, but I think maybe you should mean it. Because when you look at all these guys in the NBA and there's these questionnaires that come out and it's like, how many players in the NBA do you think actually like basketball or rather love basketball? And NBA players are like half, straight up 50%. I'm not trying to be the body language police. I'm not trying to be the morale police here. I fucking hate when people do this, but there is so much empirical evidence to suggest that Julius Randle is sometimes just kind of out there running around, and that's it. Case in point, the like pick and stand, the screen and stand that he had like a week or two ago where he sets the screen and just like stands in the way, but like not in a basketball. Like it wasn't a basketball play what he was doing. He was just fucking standing there. And then he walks down to the other end of the floor, whoever they were playing, they knock down a bucket and everybody's pissed off at Julius Randle. The biggest issue here is going to be the contract. When you want to talk about Julius Randle, that's actually not going to be the biggest issue, but let's talk about the contract first. He's got 4 years, $117 million under contract until 2026. Well, he'll be unrestricted, but he does have a player option for 25-26 worth, let's just round up, $30 million. I wonder if he's going to opt into that. 15% trade kicker, too, I think is the interesting thing here. When we talk about players in the NBA, what's weird is the ones we want traded the most are the ones that are the worst. Why is that weird? If they're the worst, of course you'd want them gone. Because it's those same players that when you put them in the trade machine, I'm using this as an arbitrary trade, it's like Knicks fans will be like, well, we could do like Julius Randle for Pascal Siakam. Like they make the same money, like the salaries work. You know, we throw in this, we throw in that, and then the Toronto Raptors are going to do it. Why would the Raptors do that? If Julius Randle fucking stinks, like you're telling me he stinks, then like why would we do that? It's the same thing with Killian. It was the same thing with Andre Drummond from a Pistons perspective, right? Where it's like these guys that you want off the team because you're mad at them, you realize you have to pitch to the other team how badly they need them. You need to convince them that they are actually good. It does not matter if you're giving them a bunch of cool shit. You know what I mean? Like they don't want this guy if they're going to be paying him $117 million to just walk around for 48 minutes. Nobody wants that. So you do get kind of put in this weird spot where you are kind of like left without options. And you're kind of left with this like, I guess we kind of just have to be at the mercy of these NBA players, like after they get these major contracts and they just mentally check the fuck out. And now we have to deal with the consequences of like giving him all of this money. Who was it? Oh, it's going to make me so mad. This is going to bother me so much that I can't remember the player that said this. But they had said in their rookie year, was it Dinwiddie? They were playing really, really well in the rookie year years ago. And come the end of the season, you know, the coach sits him down and he's like, I got to play this other guy. Like, you're not going to play the rest of the year, these last like 10 games or something. I have to play this other guy. And the player was like, why? Did I do something wrong? Coach was like, no, you did nothing wrong. You did everything right. You showed up for this team every single night. But we're paying this guy $25 million. We got to play him. So it's one of those things where it's like, even if, you know, tensions boil over and you're so mad at Julius Randle for like ball hogging and like doing these like one-legged, like not even Dirk fadeaways, like these kind of like one-legged like turnarounds where it's almost like he's throwing the ball at the rim, not the like hoop, but like the rim specifically, like he's trying to front iron it. Like it's a dart. You're at the mercy of that guy. And I so desperately wish that I had something more constructive to tell you here, Omari. but I'm sorry. Ever since we opened the floodgates of this show and the email that's attached to it, and you guys, writing in, which maybe this is a good time to plug the email if you're just listening to this on Spotify. The email will be available in the descriptions of wherever you're consuming this. copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Gotten a lot of emails about like just general pop culture stuff, but a lot of stuff about movies and asking for like some sort of a recommendation list from 2023. Like we've gotten a few of those emails so far. So while I'm not going to do that, we can still talk about it for a little bit. For those of you who maybe know me on a more personal level or even listen to the Bun and Cardigan, because we talked about it a handful of times there, but not too much. Film is like such a crucial pillar and cornerstone of like who I am as a person. I don't always talk about it like on camera because it's one of those things that is sort of my actual passion and my sort of form of escapism, I guess, right? And you don't want to turn that into like a not that I don't want to leverage it into a job, but you know what I mean? Like I kind of like that being just the thing that I like on the side. But I was watching, and there will be no major spoilers in this, so don't worry, but I was watching the new Michael Fassbender movie, The Killer, on Netflix. And I don't think I possess the language to make this kind of a joke, but there's gotta be an award somewhere for fucking studios lying to audiences about who is and is not actually in movies. Because when Tilda Swinton didn't show up until the point that she did, and then like isn't actually even in the fucking movie, I'm pissed. Because I sat through 3 hours of Oppenheimer, and like, yeah, it was an ensemble cast, and I was not there to see Rami Malek, but that's a former Best Actor. Right? Like he won an Oscar and he's on the sidelines for 95% of this movie. And then at the end, he has like this big fucking heroic moment. Fuck you. I sat through 3.5 hours of Killers of the Flower Moon in theaters. Being like, where the fuck? Where's Jesse Plemons? Yeah. Like Leo is like in his bag and like whatever. Like Robert De Niro is this like, I tell you what about Killers of the Flower Moon. Again, no spoilers. Robert De Niro still has his fastball. He was awesome in that movie. Like he wasn't doing too many like Robert De Niro faces, you know what I mean? Or like De Niro isms. Like, yeah, there were a few here and there, but for the most part, he wasn't just an old Italian guy, you know? He was just a guy from Oklahoma. He was a scumbag and he was really, really good. He was really good in that movie. But Jesse Plemons like was in it, but he like wasn't even in it. You know what I mean? So between Rami Malek, Jesse Plemons, and Tilda Swinton, I'm at a point where you got to stop telling me that at this, just don't put them on the marquee. Don't put their name in it. Let it be a fucking surprise to me that they're in this movie, because otherwise I'm sitting through this entire movie being like, yeah, Michael Fassbender is like on my personal Mount Rushmore, and there doesn't even need to be anybody else in this movie because of how much I love him as an actor, because he's a beast, right? I loved his performance individually so much that I was like, I just need to go back and watch Steve Jobs. I even watched Prometheus for the first time, like maybe a month ago at this point. Had no idea Michael Fassbender was in it. Also had no idea that movie was a prequel for the movie that it's a prequel for. The movie came out 10 years ago, but I'll still be generous there with the spoilers. And here's the thing, did David Fincher miss? I was talking to my brother about this. Like, no. But it has been, and The Killer definitely falls into this category. It's been a monster year for sound design. Because if you watch that with headphones, it's an auditory experience. I even finally got to start rewatching Oppenheimer for the first time. Like just last night, laying in bed, I like sat through the first hour and a half of it on my phone. And at the risk of sounding like a huge douche, it really bothered me watching the movie on like a restricted like screen with like a smaller aspect ratio than what I would have been watching in a film. I'm sorry, in a theater on 70 millimeter film. Because I'm like sitting here like, wait a minute, wasn't there more available in the frame when I was in theaters? Like I can't see the top of Cillian Murphy's head. But you want to talk about sound design? Holy smokes, dude. First of all, it rips you apart when you're like sitting in the physical theater. An experience, honestly, I won't ever forget. we can make as many jokes about Barbenheimer if we want, and like it was just objectively an awesome experience. I think even, maybe this is me getting off track, but in that same vein, I think what these companies, these like production companies and these theaters are going to start realizing is it's not necessarily about the movie. It's about turning it into an event. And I don't think this is quite the same, but like the Eras Tour movie that just came out, the Taylor Swift, like, they filmed the concert in SoFi in Los Angeles over like 2 or 3 nights. They spliced it all together and they packaged it as like a 2.5 hour long movie. It's an event, and how much money did that make? You know what I mean? Just people going to the theater to watch a concert that most of them had already seen, either in person or just online. It's about turning it into an experience that people will get FOMO if they're not there. Is that deceptive? It depends on the content of the movie, right? Because if the movie ends up stinking, then people are going to be mad. It really helped. It really helped that both Barbie and Oppenheimer were awesome in their own ways. And it did take me a little bit, not to like do a whole, I apologize. I'm not trying to do a whole Barbie like retrospective thing here, but it took me a while to actually finally get to see that in theaters. And it was crazy because I was thinking about the amount of people that would have seen both of them like back to back on the same day, which I wanted to do so bad, but I just didn't have the time. I saw Oppenheimer the day it released, like the morning it released. I needed to, but it's a 3-hour block. I was back in Michigan at the time for like literally one day. I arguably shouldn't have even been at the theater, but I had waited 2 years for that movie, dude. But the people who saw those movies back to back, how fundamentally different they are. Polar opposites of how they make you feel. Like you would almost, because what would you have seen first? I'd love to know. Like because if you saw Oppenheimer, you left that theater with a feeling that you were like, I don't ever want to watch anything ever again because nothing matters. And I'm like crushed. Like you're impacted so deeply by the final sequences of that movie, and obviously, the events of the story in general, but the final sequences are jarring. And you want me to fucking refill my popcorn and walk across the hall and like watch Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie roller skate around Venice Beach? Get fucked. No way. I like wouldn't have the capacity for it. You would almost have to have seen Barbie first, because you have to be in that sort of like euphoric state. Like, yeah, man, like I'm just Ken. Like nothing matters. This isn't real. Just to like walk in and be like, we're in a race against the Nazis. What do you want from theory alone? So many good quotes in that movie. So many just like Benny Safdie's character is so good. You want to know a movie that, this has nothing to do with Benny Safdie, but you want to know a movie that I am just like dying to see is Zone of Interest. And how about that new Steve McQueen, not that Steve McQueen, 12 Years a Slave Steve McQueen, not Great Escape Steve McQueen, has that new documentary coming out with A24, 4 hours long. Occupied City is what it's called. 4 hours long. Huh? With all due respect, I don't care how impactful it is. Fuck off. Killers of the Flower Moon was supposed to be like 3 hours and like 48 minutes. Fuck you. Respect the audience a little bit. I don't care what the story is. It could be about something that I care more than anything in the world about. It could be about me. And I'm not sitting in a theater for 3.5 hours. You know how many movies I've sat in a theater for this year that were 3 hours long? I think 3. Beau is Afraid, which was like 2 hours and 59 minutes. So does that really count? Yes, it does. Because previews are like 45 minutes at AMC. So that's easily 3.5 hours that you're in there, right? Oppenheimer, which is 3 on the dot, and then Killers of the Flower Moon. I am at war in these movies, but also it's not like I left any of those being like mad that I like spent 3 hours. You know what I mean? All amazing experiences, except Beau is Afraid, which seemingly nobody saw, if we're being honest, in theaters. That movie. And Ari Aster is so annoying for someone who is otherwise like the king of cinema right now, he just is. When the movie comes out, he's like refusing to do press for it. And if he does, he like doesn't want to talk about the movie because he's like too weirded out by it and like uncomfortable talking about it because he was like, nobody's going to see it. He's like, I did not make this movie to make money. He's like, this is for like Ari Aster heads. This is for like the A24 sickos out there. And then who was it? GQ or Variety? He just did a feature like a couple weeks ago where he's like bitching about how the movie didn't make any money. And he's talking about how like, I'm just bummed because like there are so many Easter eggs that like people haven't picked up on. When you spend 3 fucking hours putting everything on the screen that you can that alludes to like ooh, what could this mean? Like, what is this thread? Like, let's pull on this and like see what we find. That's what the movie is. The movie is like a continuous stream of quote unquote Easter eggs. You cannot be mad at your audience when you oversaturate the shit out of them for 3 hours. That we didn't find like ooh, what could this mean? Because when you create a movie like that, people start looking for shit that isn't even there. And they start drawing, comparisons or symbolism and shit that isn't even actually there because they think that they're in your head because you vocalized that this movie is like make sure you're paying attention to what's going on in the background. You know what I mean? When that is just 105 miles an hour in your face the whole time, what do you want them to do, That's going to wrap everything up today, folks. That's going to be our show. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm not asking you to subscribe. I'm never going to be that guy. I would do it on Apple Podcasts, but I'm not doing it on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, folks, be sure to rate 5 stars. I appreciate you all so very genuinely. I cannot express how much it means to me to feel the, warmth and like happiness that like I'm back. You guys make me feel awesome. Thank you very, very much for listening, everybody. I will see you all on Monday. I will catch you guys in the next one.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.